Now, good afternoon, everybody. I can see there's a few people starting to join. So we'll just give it another minute and we'll aim to kick off on time. I'm delighted to be joined by Marianne Roux, our Program Director for the Future of HR Adapting for Strategic Impact program. So looking forward to getting the opportunity to introduce this new offering to everybody over the next 45 minutes or so. In the interest of time, I'm going to start. Um, I'm going to just begin with a short introduction and hand things over to Marianne pretty quickly so that we can progress with things. So appreciate everybody joining today. I know the sun is shining outside, so we very much appreciate you joining to learn more about the future of HR, about this new program that we're kicking off in June. So good afternoon to everybody. Really appreciate everybody joining us. My name is Patrick Murray. I'm Head of Open Programs here at Smurfit Executive Development. Since you've joined the session today, I'll assume you know a little bit about Smurfit Executive Development already, but very briefly, we deliver customized programs for many of Ireland's leading public sector and private sector organisations. We also deliver a suite of fully accredited part-time professional diplomas allowing individual executives to specialize in areas ranging from leadership and strategy to digital and AI. These professional diplomas are stackable in that you can combine them. You can take a number of diplomas over a 5-year period to earn a full master's qualification. In addition, we also offer a suite of in-person and blended short courses. And these are geared towards building practical knowledge, skills, and mindsets for immediate impact in your role. So the program that we're focusing on today sits within this portfolio. So just to say as well that UCD Smurfit is Ireland's top-ranked business school. Smurfit Executive Development as well is ranked #1 in Ireland for open enrolment executive education programs by the Financial Times. So these rankings are also based on ongoing participant feedback that we receive on an annual basis. So this means that if you attend a program with us, you can expect a high quality learning experience. So today's session, as mentioned, it's all around the future of HR, adapting for strategic impact, which kicks off on June 4th. We developed this program because we see HR leaders dealing with more and more complexity. We felt that a new contemporary offering to help HR leaders navigate this context was needed. So we're delighted to be working with Dr. Marianne Roux, our program director, who is a real specialist in this area, and Marianne will introduce herself in just a moment. So we're aiming to wrap up by 1:45. We'll try and respect that and let you get away. So please do submit any questions that you might have in the Q&A function. We can pick those up, some of those up as we go along, and we leave enough time at the end to address any that we receive too. So with that, I'll hand things over to you, Marianne, to kick things off.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm so excited to be running this program with Smurfit. It's a program that I developed for the last couple of years and I've run at business schools and also at clients around the world. So as practical and as academic as you could possibly combine, I think. But also it's a program that I have to keep updating 20 to 30% of the format and the content because the world is changing so fast. So it's a challenge for us to stay on top of things. And I really want to just briefly tell you that I wrote this book, Adaptive HR, probably just during COVID, really. I had to adapt it even then because people had not been working from home before that. So I had to rewrite an entire chapter. Now, of course, I've mentioned AI, but of course already AI has moved on. So I've worked for 30 years in consulting as a business school professor and also as an HR director. And I've also worked in board roles. So I try and bring a combination of that experience to the learning that we do. And I have wonderful people that work with me. The first part I want to talk through is what we are seeing HR having to make sense of and respond to, and how they need to transform themselves and their organizations in order to thrive in the future of work rather than just survive. And it's very hard to go back and do another master's or go and do anything else. What we really need is something very pragmatic that people can follow over 6 months and do the real work in their organizations. That's what we're aiming to do with this program. And in this program, please put any comments or questions in there just in the first part when I talk about this. In this program, we're going to try and first start with the context we're leading in. It is so critical to lead in your context. It's a context of complexity. And what we're trying to do is help you and your leaders become complexity fit. We are not fit for complexity and ambiguity. Every team I work with feel overwhelmed. A lot are just frozen. They're struggling to make decisions. They're struggling to move forward. But this is not a time to do that. This is a time to be really bold and to upskill yourselves and really lean into this challenge. And we will, in the program, talk through all the bits that are converging, the Industry 4.0, 5.0 challenges, AI, robotics, data. We'll talk about hybrid flexible work, where that's landing. We'll talk about skills-based organizations and what that means in a world without jobs. And we'll talk about the generational differences so many clients are talking to me about, ESG, DIB, and well-being. And we'll look at how all of that sits in culture wars, new allies, markets, wartime economies, and climate challenges. So we need to, as HR leaders, make sense of this, have a certain viewpoint on it. I'm also going to be pulling cases and real issues from private sector organizations, not-for-profits, and public sector, because we already have people on this program from all those sectors. And I think it's such a good thing to share learnings from each of them. And we're going to look at what is going on in work itself in the middle of this really challenging context. We will look at the fact that despite all the scary bits out there that we're going to lose our jobs, we are in fact going to be creating more jobs than jobs that are going to be displaced. And the majority of jobs are certainly just going to continue in an evolving labor market with new skill sets and technologies. The real challenge is going to be, are we going to move fast enough reskilling and upskilling our people that they can move into the new jobs when their jobs are displaced or evolving? Or are we going to end up having jobs we cannot find skills for and people who can't find jobs because they don't have the skills? And that's what we're really trying to avoid. We're trying to make sure that we are ready for this, that we understand the World Economic Forum challenges, and we'll update this information all the time. If something changes the day before we run a session, we'll bring you that information. But we need to look at where the fastest growing jobs are. We call those the sunrise jobs in your organization. We need to look at where the fastest declining jobs are, the sunset jobs. You can do this at a national level like Singapore, or you can do this at an organizational level like Standard Chartered Bank, and we'll be discussing all of those. But where are you going to find what's going on in your industry? Do you need those big data specialists and fintech engineers and AI and machine learning people? Do you still have a lot of data entry clerks? You can see just on the right how financial services are affected. Do you have the green skills in your business? Never mind the digital AI and data skills. And how do we make sure that we understand where the fastest growing skills are? And one of the things that Robin Jasuthasan, who wrote Skills Powered Organizations, said to me the other day is that it's the first time that curiosity and lifelong learning has come into the top 10 fastest growing skills. And we're going to focus in on what does that mean? I had a podcast this morning with a client in the water industry in Australia, and she was saying to me that they are absolutely recruiting for curiosity and lifelong learning. And that number 5, resilience, flexibility, and agility, more than technical skills. They can teach the technical skills because they don't know what jobs are going to come yet. But do you have in place a good learning plan, a good reskilling, upskilling plan that brings in those 10 skills into your organization fast enough? And once you understand the challenge ahead, do you have the strong people strategy embedded in your business strategy that talks about the leadership and culture you need, the talent and skills you need, and your own HR organization? Are you equipped to serve as a strategic partner to the business in this very complex world? Can you help them become complexity fit as their operating models change, as the skills change, as the client needs change, as the competitive landscape changes? Can you help them through your people strategy to deliver? Can you build that skills-based organization? And it's a lot of work and it requires really good thinking. And we were spending quite a bit of time on this because it really displaces everything we've learned in HR about job being the thing we work with, the thing we size jobs to, and the thing we remunerate, versus building a business for skills and deconstructing work into skills, figuring out what machines do better than humans, reconstructing that, reskilling and upskilling, and then managing the change and the way of leading and the way of organizing your organization around it. We know how to do this now. We also need the technology to help us. And we need to make sense of that because at the moment, on average, our data is lying around about 80 different systems or spreadsheets. We call it spreadsheet chaos. For us to pull any data and insights to use to make this really work for us is very hard. And so we need to embed ourselves also in what AI and technology can do for us and how we can do this, whatever size of organization we are. And there are many, many ways people are doing it, and we'll talk through all of that in the program. We also need to take into consideration, we've got a wonderful strategy, we've got a good context, we know what skills we need, but we also have to mitigate for critical risk. And a lot of HR functions I work with have not adequately looked at their risk profiles, their people risks around technology and change, around talent, leadership, and workforce practices, around health, well-being, and safety, around governance, compliance, and financial, and around environment, sustainability, and protection. And we'll be looking into the Marsh-Mercer risk profiles and make sure that you don't have key blind spots that will stop you from being able to achieve your strategic outcomes and your organizational outcomes. And we need to find a way for the HR function and the risk function to work much closer together, as they have to with finance and marketing and IT. But we need to make sure that risk is well managed and well understood, and that our boards and our senior teams really understand what we need to do to mitigate risk. And we need to also understand that it's hard to drive an organizational transformation at the same time that we are driving our own transformation. But we have to do them both at the same time. And the HR operating model has now moved very far away from the Ulrich model. So, of course, I'm not saying Ulrich was not right for its time. It was absolutely right for its time. But we are now in 2025, where AI is displacing about 30% of the tasks in a good way, because it gives us 30% productivity. But it also then changes us into product managers and into consultants in a very different way. So our HR operating model needs to change significantly, as well as our target interaction model. Are people coming in and first meeting with a bot? And then do they speak to a person just like you would engage with your insurance broker? How are we going to engage with our different stakeholders? And we need to get that right. I still see a lot of people don't even have a clear operating model. We need to transform our HR capabilities. We need automation, AI, digital, employee experience. We really need a different set of skills in there. And we need to upskill and reskill quickly and while we are doing the work, not days and days of learning. The HR tech piece we spoke about, how does that reduce our manual effort, streamline our processes, and really help us with decision making? And this is our credibility piece. When we take our strong business cases to our senior leaders, and we can really show the financial impact through the data. Our HR leadership has to shift, and in this program, we're going to work very much on C-suite and board credibility and how we show up as leaders that are really strategic and transformational and complexity fit. And of course, everything needs to be data-driven from a skills perspective, from a talent perspective, from an employee engagement perspective, and from a performance perspective. So where are we? We're going to do the context, we're going to do the strategy. We'll take into consideration that it's a skill-powered organization. We need to manage risks and we need to enable HR transformation across that in a way that leverages AI like we've never seen it before. And it's not coming, it's here. I'm seeing it everywhere. And we'll get most of our gains, of course, first off, if you look at around attract in the HR admin and shared services, for sure, as well as in recruiting and resourcing. And hopefully you've already started using AI there. But then there are also massive opportunities for us in HR strategy and planning, in our compensation and benefits, definitely in learning and development and in personalizing that, and also in performance management and career management. The idea of talent marketplaces is huge. And this water client of mine this morning was explaining to me how in a public utility, they are using a talent marketplace to manage people's careers and to reskill and upskill them. And then, of course, there's also at the end of our employee journey, there's also benefits to be had. But in all of this sits overall a 30% productivity gain for HR. For me, the biggest outcome of this is not that we get rid of people. I would not want to get rid of anyone. I want our people to step into the complex pieces of work, the complex pieces of HR transformation, leadership development, coaching, the things that really transform the way we do our skills so that we become more competitive because we will have time. We will have time to do that work. And the HR business partner role will change significantly with all of this. So I guess, Patrick, I'm going to stop for a moment. I've told people a lot of things. I think my question to them is, and I'd love to hear people's comments and questions now, before we even go into the program itself. Do you have enough of a sense of urgency around this? Do you, as HR teams, have the skills and the tools to respond to this challenge? And then we will tell you how we can help. Patrick, any comments or questions in there?
Don't have any questions just yet, but we do encourage questions leveraging the Q&A function if people do want to contribute and make the session a little bit interactive. So maybe whilst people are reflecting on that, I'll ask a question, Marianne, which is kind of obviously there's a whole lot of change involved in going beyond these traditional HR models. So from your kind of consultancy work, from your interaction with organizations, what do you kind of see as the kind of key mindset shift that's needed in order for HR leaders to make progress on these transformation initiatives?
I tell you what, I was talking to a team. It's the same thing I say to leaders. Being curious and not being wed to the old ways of doing things and not trying to use models that were developed in the 80s and 90s to deal with 2025 problems. So almost having a beginner's mind where you say, okay, I'm going to, of course, we're doing good work, and of course that has to continue, but I'm going to put that aside and look at the context our organization and industry is in with fresh eyes. Look at the role HR has to play in that as a strategic partner with fresh eyes, and what that means for our people strategy, and be really bold, and what that means for our skills, and be really bold, and what that means for our own transformation as a function. I don't think we can do this in small little incremental jobs by changing a word here and a word there and a small training program here. It doesn't mean we're going to implement this overnight. You'll work out what your ideal state looks like and you'll work your way back to what the best way is of getting there. But I would also say, added to that, a very quick understanding of becoming technologically literate and digitally literate and data literate very quickly in the HR function is absolutely critical.
Okay, well, why don't we maybe dive into the program itself
Okay.
and introduce, I suppose, how the program can be a bit of an enabler to help HR leaders navigate through this stuff.
Absolutely. And you're very welcome to tell us if we are scaring you or if you're finding it interesting or any of those things. Usually by the time I get here, people go, I'm terrified. what I want to tell you is that the reason we have this program for you, and I've had a few clients actually use this program, Patrick, to transform their actual strategy and organization while they're on the program with me, right? And so we call it the future of HR, adapting for strategic impact. And we've built it around the model that I developed in the book. So through the 6 months, through webinars, we'll talk about that, podcasts, nudges, and in-person, really practical workshops. We're going to go through 10 different topics. We're going to go through what the future of work looks like, and you're going to learn to write a future of work strategy and viewpoint that you can discuss with your board and your executive team. So that's critical. And there's be a lot of tool sets and skill sets there for you. Then number two, we're going to learn about how do we write a people strategy and risk profile that makes sense for this organization, that's fit for purpose. That's not another organization strategy. That's absolutely fit for your context. And then we're going to learn how do we build HR operating models and target interaction models? How do we structure this organization in HR? What capabilities, where can I get those capabilities? I'm going to give people links to upskilling, reskilling, whether it's short, longer term, get those development plans. And once we've done that, then we're going to get into the work piece, the rolling out of the strategy. We're going to have, first thing we have to do is co-create really compelling employee experiences across the employee journeys by personas, whether it's senior leaders, middle leaders, candidates, and make sure we know how AI and digital can optimize those. Then we can also build in underneath as a driving framework, our skills ontology. And we're going to look at how a skills ontology can be used to drive recruitment and the whole employee experience and talent process, even paying for skills. It's very hard when jobs are not there to size jobs, to understand how to pay and remunerate. And we're going to make sure that those employee experiences, number 6, and talent processes are digital first, data driven, AI, and augmented. And I'm going to show you how to do this without spending a fortune. And once you've got that, then we have this time we freed up for our people to go and work on a very new way of doing OD and OE work. OD's also got a lot of outdated models. The way we do change management is not working for an environment like this. So how do I lead dual transformations? Optimizing the current business while building the future. And how much time and resource do we spend in each? And how do we lead generative change, ongoing transformation that works for the organization? And number 8, the organization design piece. How do we redesign our organizations to create fluid cross-functional teams where skills can flow to work and where people can have ongoing development opportunities? And number 9, how do we make sure that our leaders are future fit and that our teams are psychologically safe and high performing? So it forms a system that takes us through a whole transformation of the people strategy as well as the HR function itself. But right at the end, we want to come back to what kind of leaders are we? And we'll do a bit of leadership development, a bit of how do you become a C-suite partner, a board partner, and how do you drive your influence and your impact? So that's the model we'll be following. And the way we'll roll it out is to do what we call a nice program journey, a 2x2 in-person days, where we will do actual strategy design, actual operating models, actual problem solving. We'll do 4x45-minute podcasts. We were going to do 3, but we have such good ones now. We're going to do 4 for you. And you're going to listen to this in your own time when you're walking the dog or you're in your commute. And they're very practical. You'll see one of them is about learning systems, another one's on culture, another one's on human-centered design. Another one is just on a fantastic transformation of an organization I've worked with. There'll be pre and post work as well. It'll usually be maybe an hour of watching some videos, learning. There'll be 6 nudges in between. The weeks where you're not in a webinar or a workshop or a podcast, you're getting a little nudge from me, a little 15-minute helpful tool, helpful link, and you'll get a set of frameworks and tools you can use. So we kick off for June with the webinar, Patrick. Then we have our first person in-person workshop, which will be at Smurfit Business School. So anybody from Europe can join, anybody from the UK can join, and we already have some people from there. 2 podcasts people will listen to, another webinar, another podcast, another webinar, another podcast, and a final 2-day in-person workshop. With the idea of why did we not do this in a 5-day? It's for you to embed and do the work and embed the learning so that you don't feel overwhelmed with content. There is a lot of content, but that you don't feel overwhelmed. And Patrick, we have a fantastic learning system called Learning Pool, which we're designing this in that people are going to log into, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, so this is a truly blended program, I suppose, and really exciting to introduce this blended format over a 6-month period. So, I think the benefit of a program like this is that you really get a chance to attend the in-person elements, digest those virtual elements as well, and it just gives you that extra time to really embed the learning and apply it with immediate impact in your role. So we're really looking forward to introducing this format.
Absolutely. And on Learning Pool itself, other than having all of this available to you, and you being nudged and knowing exactly where you are in this and where your tools are, you'll also have a social part of the platform where you can interact with me, you can interact with each other. And, we're going to have a wonderful conversation throughout the program. So we're very excited about this. I'm also excited that I'm going to have some fabulous guests with me. So you can see some of them there. These are all people I've worked with in one way or another, and they are practitioners. They are practitioners. San Fernando, Head of Leadership and Learning, Oricon, Australia. I've got Morgan Williams, who's the best human-centered designer I've ever worked with, at Bupa in Australia. I've got Kirsty Chadwick, who works with me in Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and everywhere else, who is running the most incredible reskilling and upskilling programs. We've got Gustavo Razzetti, who is a culture expert and has incredible culture tools, and especially remote and hybrid work. So we'll talk about that. And we've got Jeff Wellstead, who's actually going to be in one of the webinars with me, who's an AI and HR expert and has explained everything to me. He's the guy who taught me how to write prompts in ways that I didn't know was possible. And Ravan Jasuthasan is a really good friend of mine. And he's the guy who's helped Singapore government and now Saudi governments build their skills First Nations, as well as has helped Standard Chartered and a few other organizations completely transform into skills-powered organizations. So it's not just going to be me, it's going to be a fantastic blend of leaders and a fantastic blend of case studies. We will work with your real strategies and your real organization, but we will also make sure that we cover the governments. We'll hear from Canada and Singapore quite a bit, that we cover different areas, pharma, IT, Oricon is construction, financial services, and not-for-profits, where I have good experience, and we do have some people from that sector as well. And what we'll also do is we will respond. If in one of our sessions questions come up, we will send you additional resources. If there's something that you need an additional case study on, our idea is not to just sit and forget. Our idea is to be responsive. And in a way, you have a small co-creation along the way with us to make this program really resonate with you and meet your needs. So Patrick, I'm going to stop there and
Yeah.
see if there are now any questions for us.
Well, there was one quite practical question just around access to slides post webinar. So yeah, the answer to that is yes. Billy, thanks for that. So the plan is to follow up with the slides. We'll also follow up. This session has been recorded, so the aim is that we would follow up with the full recording as well, so that you can watch back if necessary. I suppose a quick question from me again, Marianne, is just around who is this for? Um, Obviously, certain HR functions within different organizations might be at different stages of their transformation, let's say, but also in terms of the individual and the level, like who will this most benefit?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, I put every single HR person through this. I think I've told you in Saudi, I get cohorts of 100 people at a time because there is a real need for all of the HR function to reskill and upskill at scale. But having said that, I think the leadership of the HR organization, whether you are an HR director or the next level down, or even the next level down, but you're involved in massive transformation of the organization or your function, would really, really benefit from this. It's not an employee relations or a Rem and Ben course. Those people can go and do, those are skills-based courses. This is a course that is there to help you with new mindsets and new practices that are fit for the future of work in a holistic, systemic way, leading differently, thinking differently, showing up differently. So both for your organization as well as for your own career, this is a real reset of how we see people in 2025 and how we get them ready for what will only be an accelerated complexity and ambiguity. So for me, HR directors, mid-size, small, it doesn't matter. Next level down, whether you're heading OD, talent, recruitment, any of those, because all those areas are interconnected, they're not separate. But I'm not going to teach you about employment law or Rem and Ben. Those are things that I think one must build certain skill sets in micro learning. But this is a reset of my HR skills, mindsets, and views, and bringing it into 2025.
Yeah, and I think that reflects well the types of individuals we have registered for the program already. So obviously my details are there. So should anybody be interested in learning more about the program, in having a conversation, you are very welcome to contact me directly. As I mentioned, we will also follow up with the slides. We'll follow up with the recording. Still time should you have kind of any final questions. I know we mentioned we'd finish at 1:45, but we've covered quite a lot of ground in a short space of time. And given it's nice and sunny outside, I'm thinking it might be nice to let people away early, if possible,
Absolutely,
to grab a
absolutely,
coffee and get some fresh air. Um,
absolutely.
so I do have a question here from Mary.
Mhm.
I'm not clear on how this HR operating model differs from the Ulrich model. It still has ops partnering, etc., with tech, data, and AI overlay.
There's actually, Mary, a very new model coming out now that I saw the other day. And it's actually putting in product managers in HR to almost see part of what we deliver as products and services to clients. So you almost get like a product manager that runs end to end across the HR function. Then the other thing I'm seeing is a tech kind of center, where there is a lot of AI and data analytics and systems. And then the third piece is actually a consulting pool, a pool of people who move to wherever they're needed. So you don't have that HR business partner role as such anymore at all. Now there are different business models and the operating models. There's actually 4 or 5 different ones. That's probably the most extreme one based on where AI is taking us. I've seen adaptations of the Ulrich model, where people have tweaked it, and I'll show you how they've done that if you join the course. But I do actually think that the model is going to be completely upended to product management and consulting teams and tech teams working together across big projects, and people flowing to work, which is going to be a very, very big difference for HR.
Thanks, Mary, for the question. Just hold on another few seconds to see if there's any additional questions from anybody. You're very welcome to ask before we finish up. Again, really appreciate everybody joining to learn more about the program. as mentioned, you're very welcome to arrange a conversation with me, should you, or Marianne, in fact,
Yeah.
who I'm sure would be very willing to have a direct conversation with anybody who's considering the program. And I suppose, Marianne, there's a number of people on the webinar today that may in fact go ahead and become a participant on the program. There may be those who join to kind of get an understanding of some of these new concepts. What would you say to people in terms of kind of getting started in applying some of these new ways of thinking?
I think the most important thing, and I say that to leaders as well, is that I don't think we're curious enough and I don't think we're learning fast enough. You have to, I know we're so busy, but HR never prioritizes its own learning. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges I have is that HR doesn't prioritize its own learning. It runs around and helps everybody else. And the money's not spent on their own development. And I would say to you, you are so important right now in the organization's success. You have to spend the time and money on yourself, whether you do it on this course or any other course, whether you do LinkedIn learning courses to follow Terry Horton's AI and HR courses. It is critical that you get that money to reskill and upskill yourself, that you get that money to get your HR tech stack right. Because I believe HR is now, it has been important before, but now I really think it is a critical strategic driver of success in a world where skills, 50% of skills are going to be obsolete in 3 years, and where AI is taking 30% of tasks. We simply don't have time, and we must spend this on ourselves. You are that important. You've got to treat this as important HR data as finance data. It's got to get to that level.
Yeah, and linked to that, another question has come in from Mary. So thanks, Mary, for that. Have you seen any HR function adapting technology effectively, and what does it look like?
Oh gosh, yes, I have. I have some fantastic clients who've built, well, first of all, Standard Chartered's a very interesting one. So they have got Gloat in there as well as I think Workday. And they have built an entire skills ontology on there, all their employee experiences end to end, with a chatbot interaction model that people can go through to get help, and a personalized reskilling and upskilling platform, as well as a talent marketplace. But I was even talking to a client today, and it was really interesting because everybody thinks, yeah, that sounds really expensive, Marianne. But this water client of mine has done exactly the same, and she does not have the technology. But she was on my program 3 years ago, and she has gone and built it. And she's probably about 1,000-person organization, water utility. But she's actually gone and built it, Patrick, because she just built the skills and the models. So it is important. And at the same time, it's not the end of the world if you don't have that. You can still do a lot of this really, really well.
Fantastic. Well, we've no other questions at the moment, so maybe that's a good place to wrap up. So big thank you to everybody for joining. Big thank you as well to Marianne for sharing your insights. As mentioned, we're really looking forward to kicking this program off on June 4th, and we'd love to hear from anybody who's interested in learning more. So please do reach out, and within the next 24 hours, we'll follow up and we'll be in touch directly with you all with the slides and also a recording of the session. So thanks to everybody again.
Thank you.